Today's session is Conquer Obesity Once and for All. And Coach Frank and I actually did a 2.5 hour podcast. He's lost a little over 200 pounds and is still aiming to lose another 50 pounds and then get skin removal surgery. After working for himself as a dating coach for the past 20 plus years, he is redirecting his life and is currently working to become a health coach as both a certified personal trainer and mental health coach to work with people who are obese and want to lose weight. His website is obeserecovery.com. And the first hour is on genealogy, and he really dug deep in his family tree to discover his source of obesity. And what he found was that generational trauma really did contribute to his obesity and with continuing to maintain his weight most of his life. And so if you want to reach out to Frank, he's actually going to have that episode as a special episode. But what we did was we broke up these two next sessions into 45-minute sessions, part A and part B, or part one and part two. And what part one will be about is living with obesity and how pivoting when he found out that he had diabetes and how that made his life change. And then going forward on the second episode, on episode 82 of A Healthier You, little by little, he will talk about the solutions. And Frank is an amazing guy who has dealt with so much, and he knows so much about obesity now, and he's in a position to be able to help other people understand it, maybe dig deep on how to get through it and what to do going forward. Today's episode is really awesome. Please welcome Coach Frank. His website is obeserecovery.com, and I am so excited to, and I wish that Frank could hear people clapping him come on this call. I'm clapping silently for you, Frank. So come on out and share what was a pivotal point for you in your journey.
Thank you so much, Cindy. It's really great to be here. This is my first official interview on the topic of weight loss. I have been interviewed over the last 20 years on radio, television, and so on for dating and relationship issues. So this is my first health-related interview. So this is a pretty big deal.
I'm super excited, Frank. I know that we talked months ago and
Yeah.
you hesitated coming on because you had some inner work to do, and you're going to share that inner work today. So I'm so excited. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, I was hesitant about doing this interview because I'm still in the middle of my recovery.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, maybe I should lose the rest of the weight, get the skin removal surgery, and then do the interview at the end of this journey when I start my maintenance phase. And I've had a number of people I trust suggest that doing an interview at this stage might actually be beneficial to people listening, and it might also be beneficial for me.
Absolutely.
So
It's going to put a little ignition more underneath you. That's what I found. Waiting for perfectionism is procrastination equals procrastination. So I'm glad, no one's perfect, right, Frank?
exactly.
Yeah.
And right now I'm, in the interest of being upfront, I am feeling a little uncomfortable doing this because I'm going to be talking about some very, very personal things that I have not shared before, not
Mhm.
publicly like this. But we don't achieve our goals by being comfortable.
That's true. You got to get out of your comfort zone. I like that, Frank.
And this right now, this interview is me being out of my comfort zone. I'm totally comfortable being in front of a camera for television. I'm totally comfortable having millions of people listen to me on radio. But now I'm talking about something that is something I'm still struggling with. The journey's not over, and it may never be over. It's
Mhm.
something I have to deal with every single day.
Yeah.
But if I don't push myself out of my comfort zone when I can, and there's things that I've tried to do that it's like, okay, I can't do this yet. I'm not ready for this yet. And I go back to doing the things that I know that I can do. And every now and then I get an opportunity like this to do something that's just pushing me out of that comfort zone as a way to move forward.
Right. Now, Frank, you were 460 pounds like just 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago now.
3 years
Like
ago. Yeah, it's 3 years this
400.
month.
Okay, how did you feel as a 460 pound man? Did you know that you were overweight or obese?
One of the things that I deal with is something called disassociation. In disassociation, our minds can actually separate fact from what we want to see. So at 460 pounds, when I looked in the mirror, I didn't see how big I was. I saw myself as being big, but I never saw myself as being that big. It's only when I'm looking at a photograph of myself. And when I see photographs of myself or video of myself, that's when it hits me. Am I really that huge? And that is not a very good feeling. Not because, oh, well, I look big, I look bad, I look disgusting. More along the lines of, that's not how I see myself. And this form of disassociation, just to give you an example of how else it manifests, there are times when life does not feel real. There are times when it feels like everything that's happening around me is it's not really me. I'm kind of like watching a movie of somebody else's life. And this association with reality also adds to things like, you know what? I'm really feeling hungry right now. I haven't eaten in a while. Actually, I've just finished eating a whole meal, but I don't even remember that I had the whole meal.
Wow.
So this is something that from everything I'm studying now, because I'm basically reading books, I'm doing a lot of my own therapy with myself. A lot of this comes from the way I coped with stress as a kid growing up.
Mhm.
And one by one, I am tackling every source of that stress, trying to identify what it is that exactly happened to me that sent me down this path.
Right.
And with as the pounds come off, as I open myself up to learning more about myself, as I read a book from a therapist about how people cope with different traumas in their life and how it can manifest, more and more of memories, more and more of those memories that I didn't previously acknowledge or had forgotten are surfacing.
Wow.
So there is a library of memories that are coming up and that I have to reinterpret with the new knowledge I'm learning right now.
Okay. Now, you you obviously had a pivotal point where or an aha moment where you said, "Oh my gosh, I am overweight, I am obese, I need to lose weight." What age were you when that happened and what was the pivotal point?
It was April of 2020. COVID had just hit. Everything had gone into lockdown. This is before we knew what the risk factors were for people who got COVID. So it wasn't even the fact that COVID was dangerous for someone who is obese. Um, I got a call from my doctor. And what they were doing at the time was no longer going in for in-person appointments. Doctors were calling their patients on the phone. I was getting some test results back. April 2020, phone rings, pick it up. It's the doctor. And he says, Frank, you have diabetes. I've always had some sort of health related issue. For a while there, I was having migraines and I was dealing with asthma. So I've had a host of health related problems. It just really didn't occur to me. And I didn't go get tested for it. I just went to the doctor and saying, yeah, I'm still having this, I'm still having that, I'm still having the dizziness. Doctor says, let's just do a blood test and see what comes up.
Yeah.
When the doctor told me, Frank, you have diabetes, something changed for me. My self-identity changed because up until that point, I've been overweight all my life, but I never let it stop me from going after the things that I really wanted to do. I embraced it. Yes, I'm the big guy who makes things happen. I'm the big guy who's going to prove you wrong. When you're a little kid and somebody who you trust tells you, Frank, you're never going to get a girlfriend. You're never going to get married. You're too fat. No one will ever want you.
That's a horrible, horrible thing for anybody to say to somebody.
Yeah, it's probably not the thing you want to say to a 7-year-old kid who looks up to you.
My gosh.
I took that and I said, oh, yeah? Well, I'm going to prove you wrong. So I ended up being the big guy who got girlfriends. I ended up being the big guy who got into relationships. I was a big guy when I got married. I was a big guy when I had my kid. Part of that identity, though, made it more difficult for me to lose weight because my identity was I was the big guy who makes things happen. I am the fat friend who makes everybody laugh. I
And
am
I'll
the
show
fat.
you. I'll show you. I can be fat and do anything I want to.
And up until that point, yeah, I had ailments resulting from being obese, but not diabetes. When I would go to the doctors, they asked me, "Do you have high blood pressure?" No, I don't actually. And
Wow.
I didn't. I structured my life and I adopted certain philosophies in my life so that I wouldn't have a very high stressful life. One of the reasons that I transitioned from working for other people to working for myself at home was to have less stress. There's certain things I really wanted to experience. I wanted to be there to put my kid on the school bus and to be home when my kid got home coming off the school bus. I did all those things. Okay. I was the big guy who made that happen. But part of having that identity of my weight being part of that identity made it very difficult to lose weight anytime I tried because I'm essentially going against my own identity.
Right.
Once the doctor said, "Frank, you have diabetes," suddenly I no longer saw myself as the big guy who makes it happen. I saw myself as the diabetic. And that was a pivotal change for me. That was the moment I said, okay, that I watched my father suffer through with diabetes for 30 years. Diabetes is a very debilitating, slow death. If you don't take care of yourself, it's a slow death. As soon as I found out that, okay, I'm diabetic, okay, all those other things just don't matter anymore. I'm not that person anymore. I'm not the big guy who can make it happen and I'll show you. Nope, I've got diabetes now.
Yeah.
There's no time to show off anymore.
Right.
So I started researching how to cure diabetes. And the majority of the information that I found was how to live with diabetes. I didn't want to live with diabetes. I watched people in my family live with diabetes.
Were they taking insulin, Frank?
My father was near the very, very end. For a number of years, he just worked with pills at the highest level of pills, and then it was only at the very end that he switched over to insulin shots.
Okay.
Watching other people I care about have diabetes. I've had friends who have had severe diabetes, some people who had type 1 diabetes from the time they were young, just seeing how that affected them. I was sufficiently motivated. And the only cure for type 2 diabetes, which is what I have, is a fundamental change in lifestyle. And so that's what I did.
Right.
So for the next few months, from April until about November, I tried losing weight on my own. I lost about 12 pounds. That's not really excellent progress. I mean, it's moving forward, but if I'm only going to lose 10 pounds a year, yeah, I'm probably not going to be living much longer. So I decided to get the bariatric surgery.
Okay.
Now, I've been on the waiting list for the bariatric surgery for years, but every time they called me up and said, "Okay, we're ready for you." Well, my wife's not working right now. I'm the only sole income earner, and if I'm going to be in a hospital recovering from could be complications for months, how are we going to pay our rent?
Mm-hmm.
And I kept pushing it off and pushing it off. And every time they called me, I just kept pushing it off, pushing it off. At one point, both my wife and I decided that we should both do the bariatric surgery. So we both went back onto that list. We were waiting for the call. And until I got this call from the doctor about having diabetes, I was even thinking, you know what? When they call me again, maybe I'll have to postpone again. That call, recognizing, okay, now I'm diabetic. I can't worry about the money. I can't worry that I may not be able to earn money for 3 months while I recover from a surgery. I have to do this surgery. My life is on the line right now.
Mm-hmm.
And if I have to, I will go into debt. I will sign up for extra loans. I will go beg people I know for money. I will put my pride aside and I will do whatever I have to do.
That is quite commendable, Frank, that you would do whatever it takes to be healthy. And the thing is, like, we're not guaranteed a tomorrow. So what does money matter, right? If
Oh,
you're not
well,
taking care of your health.
I got to tell you something. You mentioned that, and there's something I wanted to bring up later in this interview, but I'm going to tell you now. People ask me now, don't you feel better that you've lost 200 pounds? And the answer I give them is, not really, because I deal with different fears and issues now than I did when I was 460 pounds. And what you just said about a tomorrow not being guaranteed is one of those things. Check this out, okay? Because I could not have fathomed that this is something I would have experienced after losing 200 pounds. Upon losing 200 pounds, I had a little bit of a mental shift. The mental shift was, well, I'm overweight. And technically, I'm still, let's say, level one obese instead of level two obesity. But it never occurred to me that I would end up having a panic attack because I don't know what I'm going to die from now.
Wow, I
You
didn't
see,
anticipate that.
neither did I. So when it happened, it was quite the shock. At 460 pounds, I knew what I was going to die of. I was going to die from complications as a result of my obesity. I'm now able to walk. I'm now able to leave the house. I work a physical job, 30 hours a week, 5 days a week. Up until I lost that weight, I always knew I was going to die of something that was going to be related to my obesity. Now I can die of anything. I'm not 200 plus pounds overweight anymore, which means that I'm going to go out there today and I might get hit by a bus. I might get into a taxi cab and have a car accident. I could be at work and something heavy falls on me because it's a physical job. I've actually been injured on the job earlier this year. Moving a box down hit me smack in the middle of the forehead. Went to the hospital to see if I had a concussion. I'm okay. It was not a pleasant experience, but just to give you an example, because I'm more active and I'm likely not going to die from complications as a result of obesity. That leaves the question. I don't know what I'm going to die of. And I never realized how comforting knowing what I was going to die of was until I'm no longer going to die of that. And I
Wow.
had a really massive panic attack wondering, I have no idea what I'm going to die of. I literally could die tomorrow. One of the things that I describe obesity as is that obesity can be a slow suicide. Okay. Now, I'm not trying to trigger anybody with this. I'm not trying to point fingers. I'm explaining my experience with it, my interpretation. I see obesity as a slow form of suicide. Well, when you're not obese anymore, you're no longer in control of when you die. And that was jarring. So, this is one of the things that comes up that I would never have anticipated.
Hmm.
Never would have anticipated being afraid, feeling panic because I don't know what I'm going to die from now.
Now, I know you're going to talk about your family upbringing and the genealogy. Maybe like this fear of dying or not knowing what you're going to die from, is that part of anxiety or part of your upbringing and the reason why you gained the weight initially?
Anxiety is a big part of it. Uh, I don't want to bash anybody in this interview because I firmly believe the majority of people are good. The majority of people do the best they can with
Right.
what they know.
Yeah. Frank, hey, I wrote a book and I talk about my family upbringing.
Mhm,
And although I had an awesome family, there were still things that are generationally passed down and the mindset is
mhm,
passed down. And then we absorb it and then we carry on, or we make the decision to not carry it on and do like pivot, like you've
mhm,
pivoted
mhm.
and think a different way, and you're going to share some books as well that helped you through this. And I'm a real big advocate of reading books and reading other people's thoughts and theories and knowledge, because we ultimately will grow from other people's experiences and your experience today. That's why I'm so grateful that you're here today, because your experience and your history and your knowledge is going to be so profound for other people that are in that weight loss journey like you are.
When I was a dating coach, and I still do that, I still earn money in that way. When I wrote my books for dating and relationships, I wrote them in the way that I would have needed to have books written for me.
Oh, nice. That's smart.
Because my target audience was okay, who was I 5 years ago. That's who I'm writing this book for, because I'm trying to explain it to me in a way that I would have needed the information presented. So I'm trying to do the same thing now with obeserecovery.com. I'm trying to present the information, at least present my story in a way that I would have needed to hear it.
Right.
Had I been listening. Now, you mentioned generational trauma. We can talk about that now if you like.
Sure.
Um, the book that I read was It Didn't Start With You by Mark Wolynn. Wolynn is spelled Wolynn. And I'm going to explain to you how I understand generational trauma. I'm not a licensed therapist, so I may not get all the terminology correct. Basically, generational trauma works like this. Something happened somewhere in your family's history that impacted their children. Possibly it was something that may have happened to your great great grandparent. And then your great grandparents were traumatized from it, picked up certain behavior patterns to cope and survive, and passed on those behavior patterns to your grandparents, who passed them on to your parents, who passed them on to you.
Mm-hmm.
Behavior patterns that, taken out of context, you kind of wonder, why is my parents reacting this way? Why are they insisting on these particular rules to be followed? It doesn't make sense in this context.
Mm-hmm.
But you're growing up in that environment and you end up internalizing how your parents raised you.
Mm-hmm.
Only to find out that you are behaving as if you've been traumatized by something that not only did you not experience, but something that may have happened in your family line over 100 years before you were born. But the behavior patterns that have been instilled carry on from generation to generation.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're dealt with, I'm living my life and I'm feeling all of these feelings and I don't understand why I'm feeling these ways. Yes, I understand that it was because I was raised this way, but I don't understand why. I need to know the why. I've been an avid genealogist for the majority of my life. I've always loved researching my family tree, but I took a 20-year break from it while I decided I needed to work on myself and, you know, figure out relationships, figure out dating, raise a family. I got into genealogy again, I'd say about 5 or 6 years ago. And with the technology that exists today, where you have websites and DNA tests and so on, and you have an entire network of DNA matches that you can connect with all over the world with
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
I went full throttle with it. I actually met a sixth cousin of mine. We met in person, met online initially. Well, what did I learn from that sixth cousin? He was also obese. He also went through the bariatric surgery. He also had to work on himself and lose a lot of the weight.
Oh.
And if you saw us on the street, we would not be recognized as cousins. We really don't look that much alike, other than having the same type of heritage. And I was able to trace the connection, the actual couple that we both stem from. And in continuing with this research, found out that in that particular family line, almost everyone was obese,
Interesting.
including one of my great grandmothers. So the whole line had experienced obesity. Oh, that whole family is big. Okay, so that's where I get it from. And in understanding and researching your family tree, that's how I learned about some of the traumas that my family had suffered. Now, I'd always heard the stories, but I never really connected the dots. So, one of the ways that I use this generational trauma is that I identified very specific traumas that had happened in my family line, and that the behavior patterns that those traumas inflicted on my grandparents got passed down to my parents and passed down to me. So, I'll give you an example. Okay. My paternal grandmother was about 4 years old when her father died.
4 years old?
She was 4 years old when her father died.
Okay.
And the stories of how he died are all different. Different relatives have a different story about how he died. My grandmother was 4. My grandmother watched as her mother refused to remarry. One of the stories was that my great grandfather told my great grandmother, please don't remarry. I don't want another person coming into the house and mistreating my children, which is something that was common back then. Somebody comes into the house, takes over the family, and the stepchildren aren't always treated as well as the genetically born children.
Okay.
So my grandmother watched as my great grandmother really struggled financially to keep the family together. She was only 4, and the idea of leaving the house was traumatizing for her. So my grandmother grows up in that environment, likely traumatized, 4 years old, doesn't really know her father, doesn't know anything, doesn't really remember him, only remembers that he died, and apparently could have been a violent death. That might be one of the reasons that we don't know what happened. So while my grandmother was raising her family, she had mostly boys. Boys will be boys. They're going to go out. They're going to have their fun. They're going to play as young adults. My grandmother would sit at the window waiting to make sure they came home alive every time they went out. Now, my grandfather, he had uh, a different kind of upbringing. And he used to tell her, you're crazy. They're out having a good time. You're sitting here worried they're going to die. Like they're having fun. They're going to be home. So she used to tell my uncles, hey, call me to let me know you're all right. So what would my uncles do? They will call at 6 o'clock in the morning. Okay, I'm all right. I'm coming home. It's like, no, that's not what she meant. Might have eased some of her nervousness. My father, who married young, wasn't going out and having fun and partying. He would actually stay with my grandmother and try to comfort her while witnessing this. My father also had personal stories of trauma. The one that I talked about at his eulogy was the fact that at 6 years old, he lost an eye in an accident while the family was at the beach. So you got my grandmother, whose father died when she was 4, in what could be a very unknown but probably unpleasant death. My father losing an eye at 6 years old when they all lived in Italy. The idea of going out of the house, going to try something new, it's dangerous. The world is scary. The world is dangerous. And that's the message that got passed down. So, what's the message I'm internalizing as a 4-year-old little boy? The world is dangerous. We shouldn't go out. We shouldn't do anything because if you go and do something, you might get hurt and bad things might happen. You might die.
Wow.
Now we're going to look at my mother's side. My great grandmother died when she was about 21 years old in childbirth. She already had 2 children. One of those 2 children was my grandmother. Another grandmother who was an infant when her parent died. The story that I got from there was that it was one of my great grandmother's last wishes to say, make sure that my children remember me. My grandmother, who never really met her mother, I mean, she died when my grandmother was 2,
Mm-hmm.
knew everything about my great grandmother. She was born Italian with red hair and green eyes and fair complexion. So she really stood out amongst the Italians.
I'm sure she did.
And the stories about her, and when I was growing up, any story that my mother would talk about her grandmother, my great grandmother's name was Francesca. I'm Frank. So the name carried over. So my mother and her sister and her mother would all talk about my great grandmother. And it wasn't until I started researching the family tree that I realized, wait a minute, they talked about her as if they knew her, as if they had associated with her. She died before any of them could remember her.
That's fascinating, and that's amazing. So she was 21 when she died.
She was 21 when she died in childbirth, about 21.
Wow.
She had already had 2 kids before, which was a pretty common thing back then,
Yeah.
to marry
Yeah.
younger and have multiple kids. The amount of women who died in childbirth was very high in comparison to now. You could have one woman having 10 or more children, of which maybe 6 of them lived to adulthood.
Mhm.
So we're dealing with very hard times. So what got passed down to me? You have to be remembered. You have to go out and do something. You have to be remembered, because to be remembered became this thing to live up to. Now, what happens if you're just not that good at certain things? You got to be perfect. You got to do something to be remembered. And that was an added stress. And One of the things that the book It Didn't Start With You taught me is to actually have a conversation with the relative. And I know this sounds odd, folks. Folks, I know this sounds hokey, but I am telling you, after I did this, not only did I eliminate 50% of the anxiety that I have lived with all of my life, I experienced something magical. 3 weeks. For 3 weeks after doing this mental exercise, I had zero anxiety. I actually experienced what it's like to feel normal.
Okay, let's have that, Frank.
Okay. So I had a conversation as if I was talking to my great grandmother, and I explained, I'm so sorry about what happened to you. I am so sorry that you died in childbirth. I'm so sorry for the pain you experienced. I am so sorry that you didn't get to raise the two kids that you already had. I am so sorry that your last wish was you wanted to be remembered. You wanted to make sure they remembered. I want to assure you, not only did they remember you, they taught me about you. And I am going to do a profile of you on my family tree website to make sure that anybody who visits the tree will know about you and remember you. But the pain was yours. I cannot carry your burden.
Mm-hmm.
I need to live my life. And I know that you would want me to live my life the same way I want my son, I want my child to live his life. I don't want my kids taking on my burden. I can't carry your burden anymore. I can't carry your pain anymore. I have to release it. I love you. Thank you for contributing to my life, but I need to heal and let this go. And that was one of the steps that I did. Now let's go on to one more bit of trauma here that directly relates to my obesity. My mother told me very often, especially when I was researching the family tree, that she had two siblings that died as children, died as infants. But it was a common thing, and it was like, oh yeah, well there were another two, but they didn't live long, and et cetera, et cetera. When I started this journey to try to identify the sources of my obesity, I would engage people in conversations to try to learn more about my past. And it was something I picked up on. And again, um, reading books like When Children Grieve, It Didn't Start With You, taught me that sometimes when people are trying to express a grief, an unresolved emotional communication because someone has died and we're trying to cope, that sometimes it'll come up in just subtle conversations. My mother had said something about, oh, poor Johnny. And I said, who's Johnny? And she says, oh, Giovanni was my younger brother. So I got her to open up about her little brother Giovanni. When my mother was about 3.5 to 4 years old, she had a baby brother named Giovanni, Johnny. Johnny was born a little sick. It was right in the middle of one of the world wars. Johnny only lived for 8 months. In part, he was already sick. He also starved to death because there wasn't enough food to go around. During the war, my grandmother wasn't able to produce enough breast milk. And between the sickness and his inability to eat, the lack of food, he died at 8 months. He cried because he was in so much pain. And as my mother described the life of Johnny, it was very emotional for
How
her.
how much older was your mother?
She was only 3.5 to 4 years older.
Okay.
So now, in reading the books on grief and generational trauma, children's memories don't start to really take effect until they're about 4 or 5 years old. Prior to that, anything that happens in a child's upbringing is internalized as beliefs about the child. It's not a memory that they can say, well, I have a memory and I can analyze it later. There is no formed memory. There's only what the child can interpret, what the child brings in, and then says, to give you an example, you're 3 years old, you're waiting for your parent to come home, and parent comes home, and the kid says, yay, parent is home. And you go up to the parent, and the parent's like, not now, I've had a bad day at work. You're 3. You don't understand the concept that your parent had a bad day at work and just needs to be left alone. What you interpret is, well, my parent didn't want to spend time with me. I must be the problem. I am the source of the unhappiness of my parent. That's how we internalize our upbringings as children. That's one of the ways. It's not the be all and end all, but that's one of the ways. So my mother's earliest memories were of her little brother starving to death. I was the third born child. My mother had 2 children already, And there's a good 10 plus year gap between myself and my siblings. When my parents decided, you know what, let's try for a third child. Initially, my mother didn't want a third child. She was done. She communicated this to me when I was in my 30s.
Oh, wow.
Not in a harsh way. It wasn't done as if I never wanted you. It was more of, I really didn't want a third child. I was done. I had my two. Well, in understanding the trauma, my great grandmother died giving birth to her third child. My mother's earliest memories were of her baby brother starving to death. Then I come along. And what's something my mother always told me growing up? You have to eat. What was the way my mother showed me love? Prepared food for me. When they decided, okay, look, it's time, I got to move out of the house here. No, you can't go. Same thing as my father. If you leave the house, you will die. And whenever anything bad happened, how did my mother solve it? Here, eat something. It'll keep you alive. When I finally did move out, what did my mother do? She went on a rampage buying me packs of soup, boxes of jello, you name it, just tons and tons of food. Here, take it with you. I didn't have the heart to tell her, yeah, these noodles and this jello's probably not the most healthy thing for me to eat, but she's loading me up with all this food. Why? Because she was terrified that I was going to starve.
Understandable.
When I met my wife, one of the first things my mother told my wife to be at that time, oh, I'm so glad you know how to cook. I wouldn't want my son to starve. I was over 300 pounds. Starving was not an issue, okay? A 300-pound me is not going to starve. I could go without food for 3 or 4 months. I guarantee you, I will not starve to death,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
But it's what she went through.
Wow.
Now, I just want to add this because I really want people to understand how deep trauma can run. Because the war was going on when little Johnny died, the cemeteries were closed. People could not go through the traditions associated when somebody dies to bury them and have a showing and so on. All of these things are necessary practices to help people cope with death so that they could move on. Little Johnny's body was basically put out into the street, collected, and buried in a mass grave somewhere.
Wow. Really?
So after the war, there was no place to go visit a grave
Oh
for
my
them.
gosh. That's so
Yeah,
sad.
yeah. In researching my family tree, I found out that one of my great grandmothers, they fled to the mountains when the army came into the city. She died in the mountains of starvation. They buried her there, and after the war was over and the cemetery reopened up, some families, like mine, had to dig up the body that was buried elsewhere and bring the bones to the cemetery so that they could have a final resting place.
Wow.
I'm not trying to say this in a harsh way. I'm not trying to say, oh, you see, I blame all of you. No, it's more of I need to acknowledge everything that happened
Mhm.
because I'm carrying that trauma because it fed through the behavior patterns of the people that I grew up with and raised me.
Yeah, and just to add, just to give you a second to breathe and to just take a second. I had some tears earlier because, as I think you know, that we lost our son, right, in a car
Yeah,
accident.
yeah.
He was 21, and recently I was in a car accident last Friday, actually, and I
Wow.
demolished our truck, total write off. And when I called my husband to come get me, he was so distraught that he couldn't console me. And the next day, he admitted that every time I leave the house to go in a vehicle or on my
Yep.
motorcycle,
Yep.
and every time my daughter, comes here or leaves here in her vehicle, he's worried. And I said, Darren, you can't put that energy out there to the universe. Like, you got to stop that. Like, because what you think about comes about.
Yep.
And
And I
but
completely relate.
it's a current day thing. It is a thing how he feels. And I can't necessarily say you can't think about that or you can't think that way. It's the way that he's internalizing it right now, and
Yeah.
hopefully he gets over that.
Yeah, and I totally get that.
Yeah.
The only thing that I can suggest is that when those feelings do come up, we must acknowledge them and then proceed to behave as if those feelings were not influencing us. I feel the same things you do because of the way I was raised. Whenever my wife leaves the house, whether she's going to go shopping for groceries, whether she's going to school, going to visit a friend, crosses my mind. She may not come back. When my son goes off to school, to daycare, to head out with friends, my first thought is he might not come back because that's what I was brought up with on my father's side.
Right.
So I'm learning to deal with that by saying, okay, I acknowledge this feeling. I
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge it. I acknowledge that I'm terrified that my family's going to die. Once I acknowledge it, I understand that this is my anxiety. This is not real. Okay. The feelings are real, but the situation that I'm worried about isn't. This is what's been passed down to me to worry this much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, if I wasn't panicking about this, what would I do? Because if I'm panicking about it, I'm looking out the window, I'm checking my phone. Did they call? Did they send an email? Should I check? Should I call just to check up on them? No. What would I do if I wasn't worried? Well, I would probably focus on my work. I would probably focus on something else. And in that way, it helps, but it never truly goes away. Until I did that exercise with the generational trauma, because I did the same thing with my Uncle Johnny, where I'm visualizing talking to an 8-month-old child saying, I'm so sorry. What happened to you? I'm so sorry I never got to know you. I'm so sorry that I just learned I had an uncle that I never knew. But that hit, I need to be able to heal. I need to let this pain of his go, but I will remember him and I will tell his story. So in some way, he has that immortality with him. My mother had an older sibling, a little girl who was born about a year or two before her, who died. And then she was born, and the oldest sibling said, okay, you have to name Frank's mom this after the little sister that I just lost. Because my grandmother was going to name my mother something else. But the older sibling was like, no, I miss my little baby sister. I want this sister to have her name too. So you had two children. And again, it was a common thing. If you study genealogy and you go back to when you had people in villages, sometimes you have multiple siblings, all with the same name, because the first siblings who were born didn't make it past childhood. That was the the anxiety that we live with every day, which her husband is going through, completely normal, and it becomes such a normal part of our lives that we don't even recognize it as being a trauma. One of the things I firmly believe, at least as it relates to my obesity, is that a lot of the things that I deal with day to day that I just feel, well, this is just a normal part of life. No, this is not a normal part of life. It's a normal part of my life because of certain things that happen
Mm-hmm.
about the way my brain was shaped.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not normal for everybody. And that's where we have hope.
Such an interesting conversation, Frank. This is probably something that maybe the audience didn't realize we'd go this in depth about how important genealogy is and how much trauma is involved in and tied to weight and how much weight you surround yourself. We also had a conversation, didn't we, Frank, about you protecting yourself by putting weight on. What wasn't that part of your story as well?
One of the things that happened, well, people who know my background as a dating coach, I was stood up at the prom, lost my ex-fiance to one of my best friends, hung out with a woman for a couple of years who insisted that we could only be friends, never date, never be serious because we were of a different race, religion, culture, only for her to end up marrying somebody who was of a different race, religion, culture.
Wow.
And the sense of loss, the sense of betrayal, the sense of abandonment, all of this pain was coming in. And how do you deal with grief? So some people stay busy. Rather than deal with the grief, they want to stay busy. Well, I was staying busy by taking extra classes, working full time, and eating.
Mm-hmm.
I have nothing to do for the next couple of hours. I got to stay busy. Otherwise, I have to deal with these emotions. Well, I finished my homework. My brain's too mush to do anything more advanced. I'm physically tired from my job. I can be busy eating because it allows me to avoid unpleasant emotion. And I ballooned. And of course, when you're bigger, it's a little bit more difficult to attract a partner. Now, I'm saying this as the obese dating coach here who was able to go out and still find partners, but I had to work harder, had to work harder. part of what our psyche does, even when our psyche seems to self-sabotage us, even when it seems like, why do I do this to myself? Why do I keep making the same bad choices? On some level, it's our psyche trying to protect us. It is our psyche's way of trying to heal us. Every time we do something where we say, ah, smack the head, can't believe I made that mistake again.
Yeah, like I did that with drinking, Frank. Instead
Mhm.
of eating, I turned to drinking.
Alcohol.
And then I quit 5 months ago because I knew that it was out of control. And
Mhm.
I knew that if I wanted to get back to me being me, and I mean, I had a high tolerance, and that came generationally down to me as well. And I
Mhm.
thought, what's one glass or two glasses or three glasses? And then it got to the point where three wasn't enough. And like, that's when you realize, okay, I need to just take a break completely. And that's not easy for a lot of people to do.
Yeah.
It's like telling an obese person to stop eating, and then you'll be okay. Like you'll
Yeah.
solve your problem if you stop eating. Well, you could solve a problem. The thing too with alcohol is, yeah, you could stop drinking, and that will be okay. But then you might turn to sugar, or you might
Mhm.
turn to something else. So
That's right.
dealing with the issue at hand. And I think, like you said, being busy. I went into that phase too, being busy,
Yeah.
and now my body is saying, like, slow down. And maybe that truck accident a week ago was saying to slow down. And then 3 days later, our basement floods. And then, like, another way to say slow down and observe the
Mhm.
signs, like what's coming at us. And being able to manage the stress that comes with all of this stuff, and taking care of ourselves and slowing down and pausing and thinking. I think it's so important, regardless of what issue you have, whether it's obesity, a grief stricken, anxiety. I think a lot of those are things where you just need to slow down and breathe and take care of yourself. And I always say, put the oxygen mask on yourself, right?
Yeah.
Take care of yourself, because no one else is going to do it, right?
No, no one's coming to save you. This is a battle that we have to do on our own. We are capable of it. We may need help. We may need the support.
That's right.
We may need to learn new perspectives to give ourselves something that's outside ourselves. The
Hmm.
perspectives we need to get are going to be outside ourselves because internally we're already set. You know, that critical voice that's in the back of your head telling you you're not good enough, you're not great enough, you haven't done enough. You should be doing this. You should have achieved that by this point. One of the things I learned is that my critical voice is my 4-year-old self. Our memories are just starting to form, and we start internalizing every belief through the lens of a 4-year-old. So it's not that parent has a bad day. It's, well, my parent doesn't love me because I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not whatever the case is. I make my parent miserable. I'm a bad person. There's something fundamentally flawed with me.
Hmm.
Is That's the internal message. And that critical voice comes in, and when the critical voice comes in and starts bashing you for all the things that you end up feeling so bad about yourself, well, oh, I just want to escape this. What am I going to escape with? Well, you're going to escape with whatever's most efficient, whether it be drugs, alcohol, or food.
Hmm.
These are escape tools so that we don't have to feel the bad thing. That critical voice is that 4-year-old version of you who, in their tiny little brains, think that, oh, this is how we protect ourselves. This is how we get better. Because sometimes it does make us better. Sometimes that critical voice makes us say, okay, that's it. I'm stopping everything and I'm just going to work on this. I'm going to achieve that goal. You know, I've written about 20 books in my life, each one being about 200 pages minimum. And every time I wrote a book and I published it within a week or two, I'd be telling my closest friends, I don't feel like I've accomplished anything lately. I don't feel like I've done enough. To which they would reply, Frank, you just published another book.
So you've published 20 books, Frank?
I self-published over 20 books on the topics of relationships and dating.
Wow.
But every time I published another book, it's like, okay, I feel really good for a few days. I feel good. I accomplished something. And the critical voice comes in the back of my head and says, well, aren't you going to get on to the next one? come on, you got to be remembered.
Yeah. You know,
There's,
Frank, you and I have actually a lot of similarities, like, because I'm finishing my book on reflecting on life and growing through grief. And it's in the editing phase, and I'm self-publishing it soon.
mhm,
And I know that once it's done, like it's part of my legacy. Like I want to have it out as part of my, like, how will I be remembered, right?
right.
And I was just at a ladies retreat on the weekend. It was a 1 day event and it was called Ignite. And I was invited back to be a panelist on the panel to describe what's happened over the last year of my healing. And last year when I was at the event, I couldn't fill out the booklet that they wanted us to fill out. I started crying because I
Mhm,
didn't know who I was anymore. And then this year, when I went back, I I just wanted to be like, the end goal is to be happy. And then they asked 7 questions about why that goal is important to you. So why do I want to be happy? Or what am I going to do to be happy? And it's like, take time for myself. Why is that important to take time for myself? And
mhm,
then it will, because then I'll find out, I'll listen to myself if I take time for myself. And then once I listen to myself, I'll know what my new why is. And then why is that important that know what my new why is, so that I have no new goals to set and new things to accomplish. And then why is that important? The last one, it came down to legacy. So when you
mhm.
were talking about legacy earlier, like that we all want to be remembered, how are we going to be remembered? And I don't know if I have another book in me, Frank. Like, you've done 20. That is quite a legacy. And to this podcast of you sharing all of these ideas and concepts behind weight and weight loss and your journey is part of your legacy of making an impact, making a difference. And that's actually kind of what I'm doing with this health podcast. It's free. People can listen to it free. This is free advice people are getting. I'm not getting paid for this podcast. I take
Mhm.
time out of my day to edit these and put them up for other people to enjoy, and maybe they'll benefit. And I pray that somebody will reach out after they listen to this and say, "Hey, Cindy, I love that podcast with Coach Frank and you." And and it really helped me see, maybe dig a little bit further what is preventing me from losing the weight. Because I know that people that I've coached over 15 years of being a personal trainer, that there's some people who just will not change in weight. It's their identity, like it was for you for so many years. Until you
Right.
dig deep and get to that trauma, what is holding you back? You need to figure that out. So I'm so happy that you talked about it for the last hour. Here we are. We might even have to have a part two unless we want to make this podcast 2 hours long. But we
It's your
haven't
call.
even, you know what? I love this. I think we can go a little bit longer. I'm praying that the audience will too, because I think this is juicy information, and we're uncovering a lot between you and
Yeah.
I. We're
Yeah.
unpacking.
One of the things that I'm learning as I rebuild my self-esteem, and self-esteem is a very funny thing because there is situational self-esteem where you can be really confident in yourself and have great self-esteem for certain areas of your life. And then in other areas of your life, we're trash. And then there's character-based self-esteem. And this is where you feel we are fundamentally flawed. So that no matter what good we do in our lives, we're not perfect. We haven't done it all. Therefore, it's all bad. It's very, very right or left thinking. It's very black and white thinking. You're either really, really great or you're really, really bad. And if you do 90 things great and 10%, you could have done a little bit better. And maybe you make one horrible mistake. Well, then you're just all bad because you can only be great if you're 100% good. In rebuilding this self-esteem, one of the things that I'm learning, and I'm trying to apply it to myself now. Okay. I'm still in the middle of this journey, folks. I'm
Hey,
still in the middle
hey,
of this
every
journey.
day we're all on a journey, Frank. We don't all
Yeah,
have it figured out, and there's no such
exactly.
thing as perfection, or perfectionism.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, and even when you talk about normal, what the hell is normal? Like, there's no normal.
I would actually disagree with that.
Oh
There
yeah?
is a normal that I'm aiming towards. I want to experience what it's like being the person before the trauma took over.
Hmm.
That's what I would say normal.
Yeah, but didn't you just say that your trauma happened before you were even born?
The trauma happened before I was born,
Yeah.
but my trauma started from when the behavior patterns of being raised were internalized. But my spirit, my soul, whatever you want to call it, okay? I'm not a religious person. I consider myself more spiritual.
Yeah.
The essence of spirit that you were before all of these other, for lack of a better term, programmings came in, that still exists separate from the trauma. So when I talk about I want to get back to feeling normal, I want to experience life without being bombarded through the filters of the trauma that have been set upon me. I got to experience that for 3 weeks and realizing, oh, so this is how a normal person goes about their day when they're not hating on themselves all the time. This is what a normal person can experience. Understanding that, yeah, there's risks. And yeah, when my family leaves the house, of course, I'm going to worry. It's going to cross my mind, but I'm not going to dwell and obsess over it.
Right.
This is the normal. There was a you, there was a me before the additional programming came in, and that additional programming was usually something based on the traumas of people before us. And that is what I'm aiming for. And one of the beautiful things about this book that I'm reading, it's called Self-Esteem by Matthew McKay and Patrick Fanning. One of the things I'm learning there is that we have an inherent value. And the inherent value is in our human experience. That's our inherent value. The fact that we're alive and we exist, that's our value. It has nothing to do with what we've achieved, what we've earned. In the financial world, they define your wealth by how much time you don't have to work. Wealth is measured in time in the financial world. In other worlds, if you're a collector of some kind, your value is how big your collection is of something. In personal worth, the idea is that, well, I've accomplished this, I'm this kind of person, I do good deeds, etc., etc. But when we talk about self-esteem, your self-esteem cannot be based on the things you have or the things you've accomplished. Your self-esteem, when we talk about inherent value of your worth, you're worthy because you exist. And that's all the reason you need to be worthy. Because every time we make it about something we've achieved, that critical voice in the back of the head says, is that all? That's what you've achieved? You've published 20 books only? You should be writing 100. You've done good work. You've helped a lot of people. What about all the people you didn't help?
Yeah.
You know, one of the most powerful reviews I ever got as a dating coach was from somebody that I had coached to the point where he was, and I didn't realize this at the time, he was an incel, involuntary celibate, couldn't get a girlfriend, couldn't get a date. And with my coaching, he ended up having the kind of girlfriend he's always wanted, a non-monogamous lifestyle with her, which is something he always wanted. And in his review, he talked about how up until he found my work, he was actually contemplating getting a gun and going out and shooting up a bunch of people.
Oh my gosh.
And that review where he says, I've thought about doing that, and now I have this great life, and I couldn't even imagine throwing all that away.
Wow.
And now I look at a review like that and I could say, wow, well, that'll give me value. I should have high self-esteem. But no, because that critical voice in the back of your head says, okay, you helped the one guy. What about all those other people on those forums that
Hmm.
you're not reaching? That's the danger about making self-esteem based on the things that we acquire.
Yeah.
Our inherent value has to be, I have value for the simple reason that I exist, that I'm part of this human experiment.
I have a spiritual friend who wrote a book, I'm Good Enough to Be Me.
Oh, I love
And
that title. That's a
yeah,
great
isn't
title.
that it's an awesome title, and she's an awesome person. And she actually was my spiritual coach dealing with my grief. Her name is Chip Oshambari. Good enough to be me. And like I know even myself, accomplishing all of the things that I've done, I don't want to ask what does it matter, or but why can't I just be good enough to be me? Like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
who do I
Mm-hmm.
need to prove myself to? Who do you need to prove yourself to?
The answer to that, if I were to give an answer, would be the 4-year-old you that somehow internalized you weren't good enough.
Right. Right.
Whenever I envision, because I've talked about my demons throughout my life and the different lectures I've given, that I'm still battling a bunch of demons. I had a lot of demons in the world of relationships and dating, and I conquered those. I'm working on my health demons right now, and I've always envisioned the demon that's, this giant creature with fangs and picture the most horrible monster you could, only to realize that, look, if I treat my demon with aggression, and sometimes you have to say to yourself, no, stop with telling me that. I am worthy, okay?
Hmm.
I am worthy. You did great things. Sometimes you have to say it to your demon. You have done great things. You don't give yourself enough credit. You're willing to love other people for their accomplishments, but we don't love ourselves for it.
Yeah.
That's what's got to change. But when I deal with my demon with compassion, which is something new that I'm learning, where I'm not yelling at my demon and saying, F you, leave me the F alone. I'm actually speaking to my demon as if it was a 4-year-old child. You speak calmly, you speak directly. This is not appropriate behavior. What you're saying does not make sense.
Hmm.
What we've accomplished is really good stuff. And
Hmm.
it's not our obligation to be perfect. We don't have to be perfect. We don't have to be like Jesus. We don't have to adopt an unrealistic perfection level, which is impossible to achieve anyway. We're not going to be perfect. You do the best you can with what you got. Even in weight loss,
Hmm.
I do the best I can. And some days I do really good, and some days, not
Well,
so good.
yeah, it's like all of us. Like, I mean, I've been a health coach, like, well, in the health industry for 30 years, but I'm by no means perfect. Like, I drank, I
Mm,
eat. My husband makes me cupcakes sometimes. It's like, and
mm,
I think, okay, do I need this cupcake? And some days I say yes, I need that cupcake. It's
mhm.
again fine.
If we don't allow ourselves the breaks that are necessary, we break as people.
It's true.
Okay, we must allow ourselves those breaks.
Yeah.
We have to show the same compassion that we would show to a friend. We
Yeah.
have to show for ourselves, and we normally don't, because on some level we don't feel we deserve it.
Hmm.
Um, one of the things that I'm learning about obesity, and this is part of my story, is that obesity unto itself is not the problem. Obesity is not the source of our problems. Obesity is the symptom of the actual problem.
Yeah.
And I learned this when I got orthotics. Okay. Getting back to my story, 460 pounds, lost some weight, did the bariatric surgery, lost another 100 pounds from the bariatric surgery. When I got down to 320 pounds, I stalled, called up the doctor. He says, well, you're probably going to lose another 20 pounds and then you'll level off. What happens when I lose the next 20 pounds and I'm stuck at 300? He says, well, you might want to consider the second part of the surgery, because I only did the first part of the bariatric surgery, which turns your stomach into the size of a fist. The second part of the surgery is to take the large intestine and attach it directly to the stomach. But that second part of the surgery has a lot of complications to live with. Now, if I was in my 60s and my 70s and it was like, well, do this or you'll be dead in 6 months, okay, I'll live with the complications so that I can extend my life a couple more years. But I'm not at that point yet. And I didn't want to do the second part of that surgery. So I decided to do something I'd never done before, pushing myself out of my comfort zone. I took a physical job. I went to one of those big box hardware stores and I took a physical job. During the job interview, I explained, look, I lost 140 pounds. I'm 320 right now. I don't know if I can physically do this job, but I want to give it a shot. Will you hire me?
Wow, that's pretty honest.
Yeah,
Good
because,
for you.
and look, they needed somebody. There's a labor shortage, there's a
Sure.
living wage shortage right now. So getting a job right now, people are willing to take a chance on you. Does that happen at any other point in history? Might not have happened, but
Right.
making use of it. I was in so much physical pain doing that physical job. I actually injured myself on my first day. I got down on my hands and knees. I scraped something off a bar, put a brand new label, and in the process of getting up, I tore something where my right leg meets my waist. And the pain was so bad, it felt like a stabbing pain. And I started to like see black dots. I was blacking out. That's how much it hurt.
Wow.
I still went back to work every day. They started me off at part-time shifts, 4 hours at a time, 6 hours at a time, with a day or two in between. I was in so much physical pain. Sometimes I would have to stay after work and sit down for a half hour before I had the energy to make the 15-minute walk home.
That takes a lot of courage, Frank. I just want to congratulate you on that. You should be patting yourself on the back if you haven't yet, or maybe giving yourself a big
Uh,
hug. It's
I struggle to do that because I look at it as, well, it was only 6 months of torture because it took 6 months for me to finally acclimate. And here is what I learned in those 6 months. Because I was in so much pain, I went and got some painkillers from the doctors. Then I got a referral and I said, look, I need some kind of back or belly support because my weight is really dragging me down. Got the belly and back support. While I was there, the technician, was asking me questions. He says, hey, I see you're wearing these knee pads. I went to the thrift store and I bought rollerblade knee pads so that I can
yeah,
get down. I don't rollerblade, you know,
not
I
yet,
don't,
not yet.
not yet. One day, maybe. I used to ice skate many years ago, but
Yeah,
he says, well, we can get you proper metal knee braces that'll be covered by your insurance. Okay, let's do that. And then I also was telling him about the pain, and I told him, oh yeah, well, I have foot pain because I'm an obese guy. And he says, well, how bad is the foot pain? And I would tell him, it gets to the point where after a 4 hour shift, my wife has to massage my legs and feet. And I'm in agony and I'm screaming. He says, it shouldn't be hurting that much, even if you are obese. Hello. So I invested the money in orthotics. The insurance does not cover the orthotics. But I figured, what the hey? It's time that I have to put money towards my health. I always avoided it for a variety of reasons, but this time I wasn't going to do that. So I spent the $500-600 and I got myself a pair of orthotics. Wore the orthotics at work, and I immediately noticed a change. A lot less pain. Within 2 weeks, the pain that I was in constantly was gone. And at the end of a shift, I learned that there's a difference between, oh yeah, my feet are tired, which is what normal people experience, and the pain in my feet from needing orthotics. And I had an aha moment. My aha moment was this, and it has changed my perspective on obesity completely. I'm not in chronic pain because I'm obese. I'm obese because I was always in chronic pain.
oh, there you go.
I
What a
call this the
revelation.
huge revelation. I call this the or factor. Is it really that, you're in chronic pain because you're obese, or are you obese because you've actually been in chronic pain and you coped with the pain by eating to escape the pain? And that's when I started saying, okay, let's apply this or factor to a whole bunch of things. I've had people tell me, you hate yourself because you're obese. No, I'm obese because I hated myself. Obesity is the symptom, not the problem. And all of the obesity programs out there that I saw for exercise and diet, changing what you eat and getting exercise, these are battling the symptom. It's like you're putting a bandage on a wound, but you're not treating the wound.
Yes,
Obesity is not the source of your problems, it is the symptom of the greater problem. And if all you do is try to encourage people, here, try this diet plan, here, try this exercise program, the diet plans and the exercise programs will combat the symptom that obesity is, but not the core issues, which is why the majority of people who lose weight from just dieting and exercise inevitably put the weight back on because the core issue has not been dealt with.
excellent. Ding, 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 ding. Did everybody get that? I love that, Frank. We got to the core of the issue right there. Like it's like when you go to a doctor for anything,
Mm-hmm.
and they give you a medication, they're not getting to the root of the problem. Like, what is the root of the problem? Like, whether it's high blood pressure, whether it's anything, what is the root of the problem?
The whole concept of eat less and exercise, intellectually, that makes total sense. It's an intellectual construct. Yes, if you eat less and exercise, you will inevitably be healthy. It's simple, it's easy. Then why aren't more people doing it?
Except it's
It,
not.
It's because it's not because we're tackling the wrong problem. Obesity is the symptom of the deeper issue. You handle the deeper issue, your obesity will go away.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm working on right now. Diet and exercise are important. They're necessary. They are a must. I took a physical job, so obviously exercise is important. I'm still watching what I eat, not always on the ball, not always doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Sometimes late at night, can't sleep. A couple of glasses of wine will fix that, temporarily anyway. I get it. I'm still there. But overall, I'm eating a lot more fruits and vegetables than I ever did. I'm making better health choices than I ever did. It's a progression. But I keep coming back to this. So every time I started to think about it. Okay, you have low self-esteem because you're obese. No, you're obese because you've had low self-esteem and you coped with low self-esteem through food and lack of exercise. I've had people say, you wouldn't be afraid of the world if you weren't obese. It's your obesity that makes you afraid of the world. No, being afraid of going out into the world is what led to my obesity. My obesity was the symptom, not the source. And an anger that I carry with me is that throughout my entire life, I have talked to doctors about the pain in my feet. And instead of having even one doctor suggest to me, maybe you should get orthotics. Can you guess what I was told every time I complained about having pain?
It's your weight.
It's my weight. Well, if you lose weight, you won't be in pain. You know what? I lost 200 friggin' pounds and I was still in pain. Don't tell me losing weight is going to take away that pain. The pain was there to begin with. My obesity is a result of the chronic pain that went untreated. One of the sources.
You sound a little upset, Frank.
I'm
Calm down.
furious. I am furious. All I can think of is, golly, if I was in high school and had orthotics and eliminated the foot pain, maybe I would have been more physically active.
No kidding, right? You know, that burns me too, Frank, because there's so many times where you go to the doctor, and I'm not talking about myself necessarily, but other people, and they're either misdiagnosed or they're not even treated. They don't do a full assessment on you.
Mhm.
Like a full assessment, like a gait assessment, like do some checks on why you're getting the foot pain. Like, is it a leg length discrepancy? Which actually I had a physical therapist talk on my last episode about that's a misnomer or a myth, the length discrepancy. And there's a simple technique that you can do to cope with that issue. And so, yeah, there's some things that are misdiagnosed or not checked properly. Even physiotherapists weren't doing a full body analysis when they
Wow.
were checking individuals for, let's say, a knee problem or an ankle problem or foot problem. They weren't doing a whole body analysis. And that really is what you need to do when you analyze something. Even doctors, remember one time I would tell doctors, like, I need a massage therapy requisition and I need a physiotherapy requisition for, let's say, my knees. Not once did the doctor look at my knees.
Mhm.
Like, he didn't do anything. He just wrote the prescription for me to go see the massage therapist or the physiotherapist. Well, it turns out years later, now I have osteoarthritis in my knees. Not that that's going to change anything right now, but they didn't do what they should have done. Like, they didn't
Mhm.
do any kind of check or ask a question or take a health history. Like, when I
This.
take on people with personal training, or when I was a personal trainer, I'm retired now, but I used to always do a health questionnaire. How are you sleeping? How much water are you drinking? What are you eating? What's your stress level? Because stress, sleep, exercise, what you're eating, what you're not eating, more importantly, all matters in weight loss or in general health. But a lot of trainers don't even do a health questionnaire on their people. And
Mhm.
so you're missing out on a lot of important information if you're not
Mhm.
doing that.
One of the things, and if there is anybody who's obese right now who's listening, or somebody who may not be technically obese, but they're struggling with weight loss, the unfortunate truth that I've encountered is that nobody has your health figured out. Nobody. Nobody has it figured out. Each person may be an expert in their own domain,
Mhm.
but nobody will have your health figured out. It's on you to figure out your health. So whether it's mental health, physical health, it's up to you to try things It's up to you to learn things. It's up to you to do the research. We are no longer in a position where we can say, oh, I'll just listen to somebody else for their answer and give it to me. I mean, I don't even know where I'd be right now if that technician hadn't just casually suggested, oh well, maybe you need orthotics. You know, that technician, and I'm sure, oh yeah, they just want your money. That's okay though, because if I'm getting a service or a product in exchange that's bettering my life, I don't mind spending that money.
Yeah, and actually that's what the physical therapist said too. Like if it's going to make a difference in your life and you're going to be more mobile and you can start doing things, then yeah, people are going to be willing to pay for it. I mean, that's why people pay trainers too, because they can't
Hmm.
do the work on their own, or they don't
Yeah.
trust themselves to do it on their own, or they don't have the knowledge to do it on their own. And
Hmm.
even myself, even as I'm 53 now, and I want to work out with people for accountability. Could
Hmm.
I do it on my own? Maybe, probably, but I prefer to do it with people to not only train myself, but to, I feel like I make a difference in their lives by
Hmm.
training with friends. And it
Hmm.
feels good. I like
It
to
does.
feel good. I like to feel happy, and giving back feels good.
Yep.
And I think probably you're gonna make a great trainer, Frank, because you've been there. You've been in people's shoes that are extremely obese, and you will probably do better work than your doctor did. You will get down to the root of the problem and talk about the things that matter, the trauma.
I hear what you're saying, but and this is something you and I have discussed. I look at my certification of being a certified personal trainer. It's right here on my wall, right next to the photos of me because I have before and after photos posted by my computer. And I look at those, and because I have disassociation, it just doesn't feel real. It
Mm.
does not feel real. And this is separate from, like imposter syndrome, where you feel like you're faking it. You don't really feel you've done it. You don't really feel you're ready. You have low self-esteem. This is very different. Disassociation is not about feeling like a fake. It's feeling as if this whole thing that I'm experiencing here, this is a movie, right? I'm watching a movie with somebody else playing me. This is not real. This does not feel real because that's how we coped. People disassociate because it's a coping strategy to get us to the next day so that we can wake up the next day and go through it all over again. And I'm still just learning about disassociation. Learning about it is making me realize how I moved through the world, how I reacted to things that happened to me, how I reacted to other people. It filters in. So I'm still learning about disassociation and how it manifests and trying to piece myself together with certain memories that are coming up, things that have happened that I completely forgot about. I gotta say this because I'm sure she's gonna listen to this at a later time, and I want her to know how much I appreciate her. I want to just say kudos to my wife for sticking by me because over the last 15 plus years that we've been together, I don't think I've always been the best person that I could be. And there were times when I think I resented her and took a lot of my anger out on her, and I live with such sorrow for that. Now, my wife and I do have a good relationship. I love her. I didn't always express love, and she had her issues too, and she did the same thing to me. But we've stuck it out so far. I'd like to think that we're going to stick it out even more.
I think if I don't know your wife, I haven't met her yet, but I think she's probably extremely proud of you, Frank. I know I would be if I was your spouse.
And listen, I'm proud of her. She lost 100 pounds too. We've been on this journey together, trying to get out of what was a really, really bad place for both of us. And we're doing it. We're
Good.
doing it.
Good.
So just want to say, kudos to her for because I'm pretty sure that things that I compartmentalize and forget, such as needing help to get dressed, needing help to put on my socks and shoes because I can't do it for myself. Things like that, which I have to deal with the guilt and shame of having put her through that. And it doesn't feel good. And it's only when I sit down and I try to remember what the last few years of my life have been like. I go into my physical job, which is basically a minimum wage job. I'm going to be turning 50 soon, and I'm working a minimum wage job just to get healthy. And if I focus on the fact that you're almost 50 and you're still working at a minimum wage job, even though it's a stepping stone, I mean, come on. It's like, no, 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 no. I have to focus on the fact that 3 years ago I couldn't dress myself and I could barely walk. And now I've got the knee braces, I've got the knee pads, I've got the orthotics, I've got the back brace, not the big one that I first got. I've moved down to a smaller one because I was able to lose the weight. I'm down over 200 pounds. I'm about 250 now. I got 50 more pounds to go. What I'm living day to day now is far and beyond what I was experiencing 3 years ago.
I love how you painted that picture for people. So the small things really are the big things. I actually have that on my son's memorial bench.
Yeah.
Um, realizing that the small things really are the big things. So people remember this. Like, Frank, you've come so far. And although you say you're midway and you're not perfect, like, who cares? Like, who, like, in the grand scheme of things, what you've accomplished so far is so amazing, and the gratitude that you share with your wife, and that's a part of healing, and that's a part of moving forward, is daily gratitudes. What are you grateful for today? You have so
One of
much to be grateful for.
I do. One of the things I'm really grateful for is that in the past 12 months, I've been able to do things with my son that I previously couldn't do.
Yeah, you told
Um,
me about the time you went to an arena for the very first time and watched a hockey game, or was it a baseball game?
at one point, my son had approached me and said, "Hey, Dad, could we go watch a football game?"
Mm,
Because, his uncle had taken him to a football game. He likes to be a spectator.
yeah.
I don't go to those things because, number one, I got to walk upstairs. I got
Mhm.
to walk on the street for long periods of time. I might be stuck standing in line. My feet are going to kill me. I don't even fit in the seats. It got to the point where there's only certain movie theaters I could go to because certain movie theaters allow you to raise the arm bar of the seats. Otherwise, I have to hope that they can bring in a chair from their personal office for me to sit down in order to watch the movie. So my son says to me, I'd really like to go to a football game. And you know what? I'm not into spectator sports per se, but hey, my kid asked me to go. Fine, we'll go. Spent the money on the tickets, and I'm going there. Got my leg braces on. I was able to walk. I was able to stand. I was able to get to my seat, and I was able to fit in the seat next to my son. And while we're there watching this football game, I remember just every now and then just taking a moment to absorb it all and just looking around, realizing I'm actually sitting in a stadium. I'm with my son. I'm doing something with my son. I made it. I made it here. Still doesn't feel real.
Wow.
Then somebody else gifted me some hockey tickets. He says, "Hey, I can't go. Do you want to? Here's 2 tickets. Why don't you take your son to a hockey game?" So I did. Same type of experience. I was able to walk there. I was able to take public transit. I could fit in the seats. I have since taken my son to a wrestling match. I'm a big pro wrestling fan, and I got to take my son to a wrestling match. We've been to a couple of other hockey games, and we have a list now. It's like, okay, this summer we're going to go to a soccer game. This summer we're going to do this. The joy I feel to be able to do things with my son now that I couldn't do before. And before, it was hard to feel bad about it because I disassociated so much. It was just like, oh no, I don't look at those particular memories. They're kind of boxed up. I'm getting a chance to actually live a life with my son. And this is not something I ever did with my father because my father, with his trauma, didn't like to leave the house. So there was never taking me somewhere.
Mhm.
My father's joy, his escape, was he purchased a little bit of land outside of the city, and that was the country. So on weekends, he would go off to the country. As he got closer to retirement, he would spend weeks there. That's where he was happy, away from the city. But we never went out places together. And I was so obese that I was repeating that behavior pattern with my own son. and I broke that repeating behavior pattern now.
That's amazing. Frank, you've had me in tears at least 3 times during this podcast. I'm so glad we're not actually visual.
Yeah, this is
You
really
are
not.
so inspirational. I have such joy listening to your story about being able to do these things with your son. And people take for granted that they can do these things. And
Yeah.
it's interesting hearing your perspective on it. So now we've probably went about an hour and a half here. What can we tell the listeners? Like, what can they do to get from
To
point A
get
to
started.
B?
All right.
Uh,
Well, why don't we talk about how people can get started?
yeah, how
Okay.
that's perfect.
All right. So if you're an obese person or you're looking to lose weight, here are some things that you can do just to get started. Okay. These are things I did. I don't, I only give advice based on stuff that I did that worked for me. Okay.
Yep.
First thing, the next time you go to the grocery store, buy a lot of frozen fruit and frozen vegetables. You don't have to worry about the brand name, just get whatever's on sale. Frozen fruit, frozen vegetables. Ideally, a frozen fruit or vegetables you would like. If there's a particular fruit that you hate, don't buy that frozen fruit. Pick
Right.
something that you don't hate. When you come home with those bags of frozen fruit or frozen vegetables, put them in containers and don't put them in the freezer, put them in the fridge. When you binge eat, if you're going to snack, snack on the frozen fruit and the frozen vegetables. If you're like me and chips is your thing, frozen fruits and vegetables have the crunch. If you're more of a sweets person where it's candy and ice cream, frozen fruit is sweet and it'll help satiate that temptation. If you want something more creamy, you can let the frozen fruit and frozen vegetables melt a bit and it's got a bit more of a creamy texture. Initially, we don't try to make you eat less. The reason we're overeating, we the obese, and I say we the obese because I'm still there. I'm still in this journey. We don't eat to feel full. We eat to feel numb. I'm going to say that again. As an obese person, I don't eat to feel full. I could have eaten a full meal and I'll still feel something in my stomach that says, oh, you know what? Maybe I should have this. I'm not hungry. I'm looking to suppress whatever that feeling is. We, the obese, don't eat to feel full. We eat to feel numb. What we consume is our drug of choice, in our case, food, sometimes sugar.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
That's step one.
So, step one, get the frozen fruits, frozen vegetables, eat that. So, this way, even if you do binge, even if it's like, oh, I can't believe I ate the whole thing, you ate a full bag of frozen peas, I think you can be forgiven. And if you do hate on yourself, I can't believe I had the whole bag of corn and peas. I can't believe I had, I can't believe I ate that whole bag of carrots. Like, if you're hating on yourself for binging on healthy food, once again, you don't hate yourself because you're obese. You're obese because you have a repeating behavior pattern of hating yourself. And we try to escape those feelings. Alcoholics go to alcohol. Drug addicts turn to drugs. We, the obese, turn to food. So don't worry about eating less. Try eating healthier options. Eat as much as you need to. If
Yeah.
that's what helps you get through the night so that you can wake up the next day and go through it all again, eat as much as you need, as long as you eat healthy. Frozen fruits, frozen vegetables. I found that the frozen fruits and vegetables help deal with me eating that instead of the junk food. So that's the first thing. Second thing that you can do right now, learn about yourself. And I got a very specific plan with this. Okay. When I tell you learn about yourself, I don't want you just to think, what do I like? Do you have low self esteem? Learn about self esteem, become a self esteem expert. Do you have a phobia of something? Learn about that phobia. Learn to see what the techniques are to break that phobia. Get to the point where you become an expert at breaking phobias. Do you have a problem saying no? Are you a people pleaser? Learn everything you can about being a people pleaser. Become an expert on how to combat being a people pleaser. Do you have a desire to travel somewhere, but you don't know why? Learn everything you can about that destination. There's something about your psyche that's drawing you there. And if you can identify what that is, you're going to learn something about yourself, which might be deeply rooted into something else. There might be a connection that we don't know. As the weight comes off, you might end up having memories surface. And by studying this material, you're giving your memories a place to be directed. You want to learn about yourself in every capacity because some of those things that you're going to learn probably factored into your obesity. My personal story, despite the fact having written over 20 books, I am dyslexic.
Wow.
And my books, because I'm self-published, have tons of grammar and spelling mistakes that people have had no problem pointing out.
Frank, I love that. Not that people are pointing out your grammar, because I'm stuck on releasing my book because I don't feel like it's good enough yet. And
Right.
I've had three editors,
Uh-huh.
between my husband and my daughter, and then I hired one for punctuation because she's a teacher and she knows more than me. And now I've got
Uh-huh.
another editor who's editing it for flow and spirituality
Mm-hmm.
and just making sure it sounds better than what I can release. But you know what? I love that you just said that. Thank you. Don't wait
Yeah.
to be perfect.
You
Just
can't wait to be.
do
If
it.
I waited until be to be perfect, I'd never do anything. And I
Right.
grew up in an environment where I wasn't really allowed to do anything. So I can't afford to wait to be perfect. And
Mhm.
being dyslexic all my life, there was one great thing about being dyslexic. I'm not scared to fail. I'm scared of never getting the chance to try.
That's that that is worth the price of admission today.
I know I'm going to fail at a lot of things. I know I'm going to fail. I've been a failure in a lot of things all of my life as a dyslexic kid. And I only discovered that I had dyslexia when I saw a made for TV movie. I think it was starring Nancy McKinnon that talked about dyslexia and learning disabilities. And watching that movie made me say, that's what I got. That's why I struggle so much.
Hmm.
That's why my friends can study something for an hour or so and get it, and I need to put in nearly 3 to 4 times the effort to absorb the same thing and retain it.
Wow.
School was torture for me.
Wow.
And my father was a very smart man who went all the way to the fourth grade in Italy, which was an accomplishment then because he didn't fail one year, whereas his brothers, at least everybody failed at least one year. When he got to this country, he only knew how to speak, read, and write Italian. He taught himself to read and write and speak English and French.
That's pretty impressive.
He's a smart man.
Hmm.
I never felt I was good enough because I couldn't be the smart kid that I thought my father wanted. So
Wow.
when my father was dealing with his trauma, with
Hmm.
his fear of the world, I internalized that as it's because I'm dyslexic. That's why he doesn't love me. My father did love me,
Yeah.
but he was not an outwardly expressive person because of the things that happened to him.
And I think this is also an important thing with relationships, knowing somebody's personality values. Some people are high knowledge and they don't know how to express their emotions. And that's actually what I do,
Mm-hmm.
in part of how I coach people is in relationships and understanding personality values, so that, not getting too hard on yourself when it's not even in their capability or their wheelhouse to show emotion or be as expressive with their emotions. So I'm glad
Yeah.
you mentioned that. All right. So we've covered a couple of really great points. What's our next point?
All right. So after you learn about yourself and you pick things that you just make it a point to learn, become an expert in them, let's move on to the next thing, something we've already talked about, study your genealogy.
Hmm.
Because if something related to your obesity is related to generational trauma, things you were raised with, but you don't know why you were raised with these things, study of your genealogy. I'm not saying you have to get into the whole, DNA tests and building a tree that's 30,000 people big and so on. But if you are at least willing to talk to your relatives and find out what went on as far back as your great great grandparents, you might pick up on some story, some relative, something that you picked up as a kid where you heard people talking about a relative story and somehow you internalized that, which is what might explain why you behave the way you behave, why you're making the choices you're making. I'm not saying it's everybody is like this. I'm not saying, well, if you're obese, you must have generational trauma. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm saying that was part of mine. Maybe it's part of yours.
Okay.
The next thing I want to recommend to anybody, something you can do today, write a timeline. I want you to write a timeline from the time you were born to today. And here's what I want you to put on this timeline. I want you to include any major medical issues you've ever had, any major losses you've ever had, major disappointments. And don't assume that it has to be something really big like, oh, you went to the hospital with a heart attack. Yeah, that should be on the list. You know what else could be on the list? When you're a little kid and somebody promises to take you somewhere and they forget. Now, as an adult, you look back and say, oh, that really sucks, but it's not the end of the world. From the perspective of a child, it could mean everything.
That's
One of the
that's
things,
important actually, Frank, because I just did that on our women's retreat. They broke it down into a wheel. So
mhm,
from 0 to 19, 19 to 40, I think, or 40, 49, and then 50 plus.
mhm,
And so you write down things that you did or injuries that you had, because yeah, some injuries, like even the physical therapist that I interviewed last week, he said that people forget stuff. Like
yeah,
they don't realize why they have the knee pain or the ankle pain. It's because they were in an accident like 20, 30 years ago when they were a kid. we we
mhm,
we don't we just
we
we
block it out.
just yeah, we block it out.
We block
So
it out.
yeah.
One of the things that I'm learning here, I have written extensively with some original theories of mine on the concept of the emotional needs of women and men. One thing I never got to is the emotional needs of children. I am developing that material now through my own healing process, trying to heal the inner child. And one of the things I learned is that you really want to hurt a little kid, break a promise to them.
Oh
It's
yeah.
devastating. It's
Yes.
devastating to a child. We can internalize that. The promise was broken, not because the person ran out of time or, hey, they got their own issues to deal with. What does a kid think? Kid thinks they broke a promise to me. I'm not worth it. I'm not good enough. I must have done something wrong. There's something wrong with me
Hmm.
because I caused that to be happen. I caused that to happen. So you have to include every major loss. What we're looking for here is there any sort of pattern? Because let's say you had a major emotional loss. Was that in some way related to something physical that happened to you later in life? Because that particular loss set into effect a chain of events. Like as a kid, someone very close to you, could be a pet, could be a relative, dies. You never got a chance to properly grieve. And now as an adult, you struggle to make connections with people, even people you really care about, but you don't know how to express it. Why? Because maybe you're afraid that if you express yourself to them and you connect even more deeply, you will experience the same kind of loss when you lose them. So by writing a timeline of all of your major health issues as well as all of your major losses and disappointments from the perspective of being a child, not from the perspective of being an adult. When you learn about grieving, it's not grieving as an adult we got to deal with. Learn about grieving as a child. What a great book here is When Children Grieve by John James Russell Friedman and Leslie Landon Matthews. When Children Grieve. I find that books that I study that aren't dealing with adults, but talk about, well, when this happens to children, those are the books I'm getting the most out of because understanding it as an adult does not give me the healing factors that I need to understand it as if we're dealing with children because that's when it happened to me.
Wow, healing the inner child.
And then the final thing I'm going to suggest that you can do right now, keep a journal. But the journal is very specific. It's a very specific technique here. When you keep your daily journal, I want you to log, number one, everything you eat, no matter how insignificant. Oh, I made myself a peanut butter sandwich. Yeah, but did you take one spoon of peanut butter and plop it in your mouth before you actually ate the sandwich, before you closed up the jar? Yeah, write that into your log. Count everything. We're not looking to count calories. This is no judgment here. We just want a record of what you consumed. Now, the second part of this journal, you have to list what you were feeling at the time that you decided to eat, while you were eating, after you eat. You have to list how you're feeling. And here's the caveat. Here's what's going to make this work. You're not allowed to say hungry. You're not allowed to say, well, I had the peanut butter and jelly sandwich because I was hungry. No, you need to describe the physical sensation. I had the peanut butter sandwich, and what was I feeling at the time? Kind of like butterflies in my stomach. Yeah, I was feeling butterflies in my stomach. Okay. The next time you're going to eat something, oh, I had a bowl of ice cream with sprinkles. What were you feeling? Well, I was feeling hungry. No, you can't say hungry. Describe the physical sensations. I was feeling like my stomach was a bottomless pit, as if like my stomach had been gutted and no matter what I ate just fell right through my stomach. That's how it felt. Just gonna eat a big bag of chips. Well, what were you feeling at the time? Well, I had the bag of chips because I was hungry. No, we don't say hungry. We have to go into the physical sensation. Well, I was actually feeling nervous. I remember feeling nervous and I wanted to crunch something because I had just watched an episode of one of my favorite TV shows. It was a crime drama and I saw a particularly violent scene and I just started to feel bad from that. The reason that we, the obese, cannot write the word hungry when we want to journal how we feel is that we interpret a number of different things as hunger. And it's only when we do an analysis of the physical sensations of it can we start to recognize and say, wait a minute, I'm feeling this. This isn't hunger. This is something else. But I'm trying to eat to bury that feeling. We, the obese, don't eat to feel full. We eat to feel numb. And by journaling what we're feeling and not allowing ourselves to use the word hunger or hungry to describe that feeling, that's when we can get to the bottom of what the core issue actually is.
I think you've explained that really well, Frank. I've not heard it broken down that way before. Like I've directed people to write down their emotions through the day, like what triggered them eating, but you explain it in a much better way. I like how you said, don't say hungry or hunger. Like what is the actual, like what were
Physical sensation.
physical sensations? I like that.
You have to describe because once you start doing that, you start connecting the dots. There are times where you just may actually be thirsty, but we interpret it as hunger.
That's right.
There's times where we just feel tired. We're not sleeping well. We're tired. We're feeling lethargic. Okay, I'm going to have a cup of coffee, but I'm going to load that cup of coffee up with milk and sugar and a Danish and a donut and well, I just got to get through the day. Well, you're feeling tired, not hungry.
Right.
You're feeling apprehension, not hunger. You're
Mm-hmm.
feeling in danger, and that's not hunger. But we
Mm-hmm.
interpret a lot of these feelings as hunger because the resource that we use to numb ourselves tends to be food, sugar, and the effect that when you load up on carbs and you get a nice carb high, ain't nothing gonna hurt you for the next few minutes.
Few minutes, not even a few hours.
A few minutes, you get that high, you get that buzz, it's all good
Yeah, it's a
until
drug.
it were. Yeah, it is. Obesity is an addiction, at least for me. I treat it like an addiction. The one caveat is I can give up alcohol, never drink alcohol again, and still survive and thrive. I can give up illegal drugs, cocaine, heroin, and whatnot. I can give those up, and I don't need those to survive. Well, beyond the withdrawal symptoms.
Hmm.
Withdrawal is going to be really unpleasant.
Hmm.
I know. Every time I start my diet again on Monday, I feel the withdrawals already about, oh, but I really want to eat that thing.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's not as severe, but I get it. I treat obesity like an addiction. I'm actually researching right now a 12-step program because I want to create my own 12-step program because the 12-step programs that exist under the word anonymous usually has some connection to giving up your power to God and finding strength with God and religion. Part of my trauma is religious trauma, which I internalized as a kid. And then, of course, I have to be perfect like religious deity here. That doesn't work for me. So I'm creating my own. I'm researching that
Good for
as
you,
we speak.
Frank. That's
Um,
awesome.
in keeping that journal and identifying what you're feeling without resorting to using the word hunger, it just helps us become more aware of what we're doing. It helps ground us. In my case, it's helping me with my disassociation because I'm identifying exactly what it is I'm feeling and trying to say, okay, I think this is hunger, but I've just eaten. I can't possibly still be hungry. Well, I have a big stomach. Well, I had the bariatric surgery. I don't have a big stomach anymore, so that ain't it. So what's going on here, Frank?
Hmm.
Let me talk to the 4-year-old me inside and see what's going on. So those are the things that I think people can start with right now. Other things that I just want to mention, because I know we're running out of time. This interview's gone on a really long time. The health journey works on its own timeline, not yours. I was really hoping when I started this journey 3 years ago, I was hoping that by now I would have lost the last 50 pounds. I would have already had the skin removal surgery and I would have been able to move on from this. I'm still here. I'm still in this part of the journey. I'm still struggling to lose the next 50 pounds, which is why I'm delving into my mental health. And dealing with mental health on this journey is a scary thing because, and this is why a lot of people who do lose a lot of weight, they focus on the exercise and the dieting, but they don't deal with the mental health aspects of obesity. Why? Just like I'm experiencing right now. I'm dealing with two levels of pain, the pain of trying to change and the pain of having to deal with the source of my obesity. And sometimes that pain is overwhelming. And the next thing you know, gosh darn, I've put 5 pounds back on. So to anybody who's obese and who's on this journey, or you're starting this journey, or you're in the middle of this journey, I'm proud of you for making every effort that you're making. You're doing good. Keep at it. Don't give up. Stick with it. It's going to be painful. It's going to be hard, and we are going to slip. But overall, we have to think long term. This is not going to happen in the year, in the 3 years. I might still be on this journey 2 years from now because by the time I have the skin removal surgery, it may be another couple of years. That's okay. What's 5 to 7 years of working on yourself compared with what you're going to get for the rest of your life?
Yeah, you're like only midlife right now.
Yeah, I turned 50 in the next few weeks. So I'm not where I want to be in my life in other areas, but health wise, I'm almost there. But I'm sure as a hell a lot better off now than where I was 3, 4 years ago. I get to do things with my son now.
Yeah. How old's your son now, Frank?
He's a teenager. He's just a teenager, and I figure, well, it's good that it's happening now, and I'm spending time with him because in a few years he's going to want to be with his friends, and he won't want to deal with dad. But
That's
that's
true.
okay. I'm getting the time I'm getting now. He wants to spend time with me now, so I got to make the most of it.
Good.
Another thing I wanted to say is that your only goal is to be in the process of it, and by that I mean there's places to start, there's places to finish, and as long as you're moving forward, you're doing good. So if you're still going to a fast food restaurant, and the comedians like to make jokes about this, you're going to order the greasy hamburger, you're going to order the greasy fries, but you're going to get a diet drink. You know what? If you're ordering a diet drink when you get the French fries and the burger, that's actually a good thing. It's a place to start. It's not a place to finish. You don't just continue to eat the greasy hamburger and the greasy fries and order the diet drink. You start with that. What would the next step be? Maybe replace the greasy French fries with a baked potato. Maybe replace the hamburger with a plant-based burger with a lettuce wrap instead of a bread wrap. Maybe eventually you replace the diet drink with water. Every time we do something, okay, even though it's small, it's okay that it's a small thing as long as it's part of a progression. I don't need to go to the gym now and exercise as if I was training to be a pro athlete.
Exactly.
I need to be able to say, can I walk for 45 minutes and not be in agony? Can I walk 50 minutes tomorrow, 5 minutes more? It's about a progression. Don't confuse where we start with where we finish. Every little thing you do, it's just a progression. Don't worry about the fact that, hey, after 3 years, I'm still have 50 pounds to lose. That's okay because the non-scale victories, spending time with my kid, the fact that when I started this physical job, I was in so much pain that I couldn't walk. I had to sit down for a half hour. Now, when I finish my shift, I'm able to get dressed and walk home right away. Just to give you an idea, this is a story that I think you're going to enjoy. It was in the first couple of months that I was working. Didn't have my orthotics at this point. I had done an 8-hour shift. I walked outside of the building and there was a big rock that I decided I'm going to sit on this big rock. And I was sitting there for almost an hour because my legs and my feet and my body was just in so much pain. And I looked completely exhausted, completely out of it. A police car came by. The officers got out of the car, approached me, and they said, "Sir, are you all right? Do you know your name? Do you know what day it is?" I was in so much pain and I looked so pale after working an 8-hour shift. They thought I was some, maybe homeless person, somebody who was probably on something. And I had to explain to them. I said, look, I don't do drugs, okay? I'm not a drug addict. I lost 140 pounds and I just took a physical job here to lose more weight. I'm just really tired.
Yeah.
I know my name. I know what day it is. I just told them, So that's how bad I looked.
Yeah. Wow.
It's a process. That's where I was. This is where I am now. Don't think about, well, the scale doesn't show this. The scale is only one tool of measurement. Every time you have a non-scale victory, the fact that you can climb something you weren't able to climb before, the fact that you can put on your own socks and shoes, that's a really big victory. It doesn't feel that way, but it's actually a really big thing. The
Mhm.
fact that you can actually walk for a few hours. I actually took a walk one day and I just wanted to see if I could do it. I walked from my house to downtown and then back. And it took many hours to do. It was 14 kilometers, but I actually did it. 3 years ago, I was out of breath walking from the bed to the kitchen and back.
Wow.
It's all about a progression. It's going to take the time it's going to take. So don't be overly focused on, oh, I have to accomplish this great thing. No, you don't. You got to accomplish a bunch of small things
That's
because the
right.
small things are going to add up.
Little by little.
Okay. And every time you want to blame something on your obesity, I hate myself because I'm obese. No, you're obese because you hate yourself. I want to cry because of how fat I am. Chances are you're fat because you've been needing to cry and you haven't had a chance to let out that emotion.
Mhm.
I'm worthless because I'm obese. No, your obesity exists because you already sensed your lack of self worth. Your obesity is not the problem, it's the symptom of the problem. The last thing I'm going to say is that I encourage every obese person to find a way to connect with your community. And I have a very unique way of doing it. All right. If you're an obese person, here's what I want you to consider. Whatever it is at the source of your obesity, you become an expert in and go out and help other people with that thing. If your obesity is related to a childhood memory of past trauma, become an expert in that thing so that you can help others. One of the ways that people must cope with addiction is to connect with others. The whole point of an intervention is to get that person to reconnect with people who are saying, we're hurting because we miss you. We want you back. It's that sense of connection, that sense of forming and connecting with your community. So, to every obese person out there, the world needs us to get healthy and take positions where we can help other people. Who would be an amazing dietitian? Somebody who was formerly obese because they
Sure.
get it.
Yeah.
Who could be a great personal trainer in a gym? Someone who used to be obese because they know how much they hate the gym. Who would be an amazing doctor? Someone who was formerly obese. Who would be an amazing cook to create pre-prep meals? Someone who is obese, who knows how difficult it is to eat healthy when you've got such a busy lifestyle.
Geez, Frank, you could be like a chef, a doctor, a personal trainer. Like, look at you. You have so many career options right now.
Well, all obese people do. Okay.
Yeah.
One of the works that I've been wanting to do, and I haven't gotten to it yet because it's a mountain of work. I get overwhelmed sometimes too, is that I want to create a list of professions and careers for the ex-obese to give people something to work towards. Okay. And I'm also going to say this. I went and I became a certified personal trainer because I wanted to know what the personal trainers know. And I advise every single obese person to do the same thing. Do an online certificate to become a personal trainer. Allow that certificate that hangs on your wall to influence your identity. You're not just a fat person. You're a certified personal trainer who's going to have an amazing story and is going to have the ability to help others.
It's interesting that you said that, Frank. 'Cause I actually, when I owned my gym, I had one of my clients was very, very overweight, and I convinced her to be a personal trainer, and she actually worked for me in my gym. I hired her.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah, I think that's great advice.
one of the things I used to say in the world of being a dating coach, it is in our moments of crisis that we will find our life calling. And as difficult as fixing the problems that were hampering my love life were, this right here, what I'm doing right now, this is the hardest thing I've ever had to do. And it's in this moment of crisis that maybe I'll be able to help people in ways I wasn't able to do with my last profession. We, the obese, when we conquer this battle, we will have both the skills needed to help others and the compassion to connect with others because more than anyone else, we know the pain intimately. So, to every obese person who's reading this, I don't want you just to exercise and eat well. That's part of it. I want you to pick the thing that you think is holding you back, that's at the source of what your obesity is and become a master of it. One of the nice things, by the way, about becoming a certified personal trainer is that it actually qualifies you to do other online mental health certificates. Because as a personal trainer, you have to pay for insurance, you have to be insured. And that aspect of being a personal trainer opens up the door so you can do all kinds of online certificates on mental health. What would happen if you did some online certificates on the very mental health issues that keep you stuck with obesity? Just imagine what you could do armed with your experience and that formal education, that formal knowledge. You can change the world one person at a time, one interview at a time. Sounds hokey, sounds almost implausible, but that's what helps me get through the day. That's what helps me decide I'm not going to end it tonight. I'm going to wake up tomorrow and go through all this again.
Phew.
Sorry, this is
We both did phew at the same time.
yeah, this is like I said, I'm not 100% comfortable with this interview because I'm still in the middle of this journey and a lot of this is raw. A lot of this is raw.
Well, it's definitely raw and real. And Frank, thank you for coming on and sharing all of this amazing, not just information, but just your courage, your examples and your verbiage. I think it really is very helpful to people to understand, like even trainers, if they're listening and they've never been obese. I think what you've talked about is a great tool for them to learn and understand better and have the empathy that they need to have.
One of the challenges that I've had with personal trainers is that many of them have never had a major health crisis. I don't want to say all, but I will say a good portion of them are people that loved physical activity.
Yep.
They didn't have the mental block that physical activity leads to pain and leads to bad things. We're not talking about, oh, yeah, my arm is sore from that workout. If somebody has a health condition, an underlying health condition that they're not aware of, the pain that they feel at the end of a workout is massive. And sometimes personal trainers use motivation that works on themselves, saying things like, well, you're falling behind. You want to get caught up to the others. That's the exact kind of talk that doesn't work for everybody because some people say, I would rather not participate if I have to keep up with others. I've never kept up with others, and that's a source of pain for me, so I'm not coming back.
Yeah, I'm out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, to any personal trainer who's listening to this, here's some advice for you. When you're dealing with an obese client, understand that what works for the average person is going to push away the obese client. You want to work with an obese client? Try to encourage them the way you would encourage a child who needs to move, who has to get out of that hospital bed and move, but they're feeling a lot of pain already. They don't want to move. They want to go back to bed. And it's like, no, kid, you got to get out of that hospital bed. You got to get moving. We got to get the blood flowing. Yes, you're in pain, but we got to do this. And I'll do it with you and I'll hold your hand. Yes. And maybe afterwards we can watch a show together and I'll read you a story. And I know that sounds like, oh, come on, you want to really treat adults like this? Yes. Because if that's what works to get results, then that's what works to get results. This is about helping people get from point A to point B to be healthier, to be happier, to feel a sense of balance.
Mhm.
And if your methods don't work, that's on you. Whew. Damn, this is rough. This is why I haven't done these interviews yet. Oh, man.
Well, take that, personal trainers.
Yeah. Sorry, folks. I know there's a lot of great personal trainers out there.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that be
Well, and doctors
mindful.
too. We didn't mean to bash doctors or
No,
physiotherapists
there's a lot of great
either.
doctors, but
Yeah.
I have a legitimate issue here.
Yeah.
When I finally got the orthotics, it eliminated the pain that I've been in almost all of my life. I got out. My goal when I was in college was to work in the film and television industry on the production side of things. I love being active and being creative. But the pain that I was in, constantly moving around and being on set and dealing with 10, 12-hour days, I wonder what my life would have been like if I had gotten those orthotics in high school. I would have been more active. Maybe I would never would have moved from production to administration because in administration, hey, I'm sitting down. But now
Yeah.
that I'm sitting down and not getting any exercise, I start to
Right.
balloon.
Right.
So, I don't want to bash people, but I got to call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
I lost over 200 pounds. My feet were still in pain. It was never the weight.
Mhm.
And the only consolation I give myself is, oh, but it taught me. It took 40 plus years of pain for it to teach me that obesity is just the symptom of the issue, not the core. You're not bad because you're obese. You didn't do anything wrong. You're reacting in the best way you can because you're trying to survive. And on some level, whether you want to call it your subconscious, your demon, your 4-year-old self, your inner child, whatever you want to call that, being obese is a way of showing you love. And this is truly mind blowing for me. I wasn't punishing myself by allowing myself to get obese. It was my way of protecting myself. It was my way to keep myself safe because, on some level, I internalized my mother's, oh, he's going to starve to death. Oh, I got to be alive. I got to take care of myself. I internalized my father's fear of going outside. Why? If I go outside, no, you know what? I'll stay home and I'll eat. Yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll eat. And then because I'll be bigger, people will stay away from me and people won't hurt me and I will be safe. What if obesity was a way that we show ourselves love, but it's a way that we don't recognize is harming us? Obesity is a slow suicide because we're trying to avoid horrible pains. But what if instead of, and this is what I did for years, why am I punishing myself with obesity? I could never come up with the answer. And I've done a lot of work on myself. I created a whole system for love and relationships. Why couldn't I figure out the answer to that question? Because obesity is not a form of self punishment, at least not for me. Obesity was my way of trying to show myself love, of trying to preserve myself and keep myself alive and survive until the next day. All I have to do now is learn to love myself differently. And with any luck and a whole lot of work, I will conquer obesity once and for all.
That is so powerful, Frank. I can't begin to tell you. I, if people could listen to this again and again, I think that it will sink in and it will make a difference.
I
If they
hope
didn't
so.
get it the first time, listen to it again.
I hope so. When
Yeah.
uh, when I became a dating coach, all the bad things that happened to me, all the heartbreak and just horrible experiences, I was able to make meaning out of it because becoming a coach, I helped other people avoid those situations. I helped other people through those situations.
Yeah.
It gave a new meaning to the pain I went through, and I'm hoping that the same thing is going to happen here. By helping other people, I hope to create meaning of the years I spent obese.
Let's tell people how people can get a hold of you so that you can help them.
All right, I've set up a website for this. There are not that many blog articles. There's not that much information. My story is there, so if you want to read my story, if you want to see some before and after photos of me,
They're
including photos,
incredible. They are
yeah,
incredible.
I recently posted a photo of my hanging skin, 30 pounds of hanging skin, where I'm holding up my hanging skin with the help of a towel, and I
Wow.
posted that online. So if you want to see what I used to look like and what I look like now, obeserecovery.com. Obeserecovery.com.
There we go. Okay. Well, Frank, I am immensely grateful that you had the courage to come on here and share what you shared today. And
Yeah, me too. It's
yeah,
kind of,
it's gonna be awesome. And this is gonna be something that you can share with people. And like I would say before people go on their journey of weight loss, that they should listen to this podcast.
I hope so. I hope they get something from it and it gives them a little bit of direction.
Now, if I did end up breaking this into two parts, make sure you listen to the first part because it was very powerful. Obviously, if you're listening right now, it would be the second part. I think we've been going at it for 2.5 hours now.
Almost three. Yeah,
This is
almost. Yeah.
definitely the longest podcast I've ever recorded, and it's been such a pleasure, Frank.
The
Amazing.
pleasure was mine. This has been very healing for me. So thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you. All right. Well, if you haven't done a review of A Healthier You little by little yet, we would love to have a review, and feel free to send comments to Coach Frank at his website that he said, and I'll have that in the show notes too. So whatever contact information, Frank, you want people to have, that will be in the show notes. Okay.
That's great. It's been
All
a
right.
pleasure.
Yes. Thank you.